A few months to the Anambra governorship election in 2025, November 8 to be precise, INEC has released the final list of candidates, and there are 16 contenders for the top job in Anambra State. Of course, we know that Anambra is traditionally APGA. But there are projections that this is set to be a four-horse race between the ruling party in the state, APGA, APC, PDP, and the Labour Party. Let's get a sense of the mood in Anambra, particularly in the ruling camp, the ruling party, All Progressives Grand Alliance. And who better is to help us understand everything but the national chairman of the party, Mr. Sly Okenwa. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Eze Okenwa, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Yeah, good morning, and I'm happy to be here. And of course, my brother Geoffrey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So set the tone for us. Help us understand how things are playing out, particularly in the camp of the ruling party in the state, APGA, and how you're getting set for November 8.
Well, for me, I somehow like your introductory statement to our discussion. Maybe it creates a semblance of some sort of contest, as it were, so at least that is understandable. In any election, there is a contest. In any election, there has to be a contest, and then when you have candidates by multiple political parties, it's an election. It is a contest, and within that dimension, well, maybe I agree with you. But for Anambra people, the opinion, the general opinion is very clear. On the streets of Anambra, the general opinion is clear. And that general opinion is that the state, the Anambra, are still very much with APGA. And they have not seen any reason whatsoever for them to change the trajectory of development that they have witnessed from 2006 that APGA came into office in Anambra till date. And so, for somehow, what is different this time around is that it appears in Anambra we're tilting towards a consensus candidate, because there is a consensus of opinion given the massive and excellent performance of the incumbent and the APGA-driven ideology of leaving no one behind, the progressive ideology, that Anambra people can comfortably say, yes, we've never had it this good in just 3 years by any elected official in the past. That is the consensus of opinion in the streets of Anambra. And in that context, I can tell you that, well, there is no contest, really.
Chief, some would disagree with you, particularly in the opposition parties in Anambra State. But we've seen that, your principal has somewhat adopted the president, for 2027 with that, visit by Mr. President to commission projects in Anambra State just, a week or 2 weeks ago or so. Help us understand how this is going down well or not with the other members of the APGA camp in Anambra State, especially as the president did not return the favor, has not endorsed Professor Soludo for a second term in office.
I think there is some sort of wrong impression that has been generated by Mr. President's visit to Anambra. It is wrong to say that the governor of Anambra State has endorsed Mr. President for a second term in office. It is wrong. I was present during the president's the president's visit to Anambra. I can tell you, I listened to the statement of Governor Charles Soludo, who incidentally is the national leader of APGA. And at no point did he endorse the president for a second term in office. Rather, what the governor did was simply to call on the president as a member and a leader of one of the progressives party, because we're trying as much as possible to see how we can make Nigeria work. And in making Nigeria work, Mr. Governor, Professor Charles Soludo, came up with a blueprint where you have the progressive, because we have so many political parties that are progressives in Nigeria. And the governor is of the opinion that we can make Nigeria work by allowing progressives, all the political parties that are progressively driven, that have progressivism at the core of its ideology, to come together to partner towards a prosperous Nigeria. And in that light, remember, it is a decision of APGA, the National Executive Committee, to determine whether we're going to have a presidential candidate next year or not. So at that level, we've not got into that. And in any event, Mr. President is yet to declare whether he's running for another term in office. INEC is yet to roll out the timetable for that election. And so it will amount to putting the cart before the horse for you to say that the governor has endorsed the president. And so the president need not reciprocate any gesture. The most important thing is that the president came to Anambra State and confirmed what everybody has been saying from day one that Governor Soludo came into office, which is the fact that he has seen a performer. So irrespective of the fact that the president is obligated to support the candidate of his political party. And the president is not a voter in Anambra State, neither is he a stakeholder in determining who governs Anambra State. It is entirely the choice of Ndi Anambra who their governor he will be. So on November 8th, you won't see the president in any polling unit. What you will see are registered voters from Anambra State who will go across the various polling units to confirm or deny Governor Charles Soludo a second term in office. And that confirmation or denial would be based on verifiable and executed projects on ground. And I can tell you that from all indication and from all opinion polls, that the governor has performed excellently. And so it is a day for Ndi Anambra to reward the governor for his excellent performance in office. And that it will be only criteria that will determine the outcome of that election. Any other thing, any other mundane considerations for me are inconsequential as far as the November 8th election is concerned. It is entirely about Anambra people. It's entirely about execution. It's entirely about how much Governor Soludo has been able to keep up with the dictates of his manifesto, the People's Manifesto. Simple and short.
So let's do some box ticking for Chief Soludo.
Okay.
Let's do some box ticking, and we're going to be referencing them. I've spoken with you. I've spoken with a couple of other APGA officials, members of your party, spoken very highly of Chief Soludo. So let's do some box ticking. Number one, what did he meet? What has he done that is you are using as a rating for him that Anambra people already know that he's done enough for them to vote for him in November?
Okay, now, in answering that question, you have to do some sort of comparative analysis of what Governor Charles Soludo met on ground when he came into office on the 17th day of March 2022, and the level he has taken Anambra State to. And in doing that, I think I would like to reference his administration's 5 pillars, which are anchored on security, law and order, economic transformation, then human capital and social agenda, then governance and value system, and of course, environment. And in these 5 pillars, I'm going to tell you what was on ground and the extent that the governor has been able to move the state out from that. Remember, and in doing that, I have to kind of own up some responsibility because I'm a leader in the All Progressive Grand Alliance. And it might be some sort of an indictment because the government that left was equally an APGA government. But be that as it may, on security, law and order, it is clear that before Governor Soludo assumed office, virtually 8 local governments in Anambra State were under the control of, I don't know whether I should call it separationists or whether I should call them insurgents or whatever. But the most important thing is that no policeman could walk freely, nobody could walk freely in these 8 local governments, the 7 local governments in Anambra South, and then the Obaru, which is one of the local governments in Anambra North. About 6 or 4 thereabouts of the local government headquarters were burnt down by these dissidents. And so governance at those local governments were reduced to 0. And within 3 years in office, Governor Charles Soludo has turned this around in such a way that in the past 2 months, I don't think there has been any recorded incidents of any criminal activity in any of the local governments in Anambra State, apart from maybe petty issues here and there. So That is a monumental achievement, given the fact that in just 3 years ago, nobody could go to these local governments. Most of the local government chairmen in those local governments govern from Oka. But today, activities, governance activities and human activities and economic activities in these local governments are in top notch as we speak right now. And then come to economic transformation, especially looking at the infrastructure. One of the greatest challenges Anambra State had then was the fact that most of the road infrastructure dilapidated in such a way that if you get the campaign speech and the various campaign promises that Governor Charles Soludo made while he was still campaigning, he declared clearly, I was there severally, that he was going to declare a state of emergency on the roads because according to him, and he has a clear idea of how the economic transformation in Anambra State is going to work. For you to have massive economic transformation in terms of moving the fortunes of the state, then the infrastructure in the state has to be top-notch in such a way that there has to be free flow of movement among goods and services in Anambra State. And in that, Mr. Governor, in just 3 years in office, has been able to award contract for the construction of close to 1,000 kilometers of roads in Anambra State, out of which over 500 has been asphalted, unprecedented in the annals of Anambra State history by any government, even in 8 years. And for context, the previous government could not even do maybe just some 100 and something kilometers. So then you come to the human capital and the social agenda. And for me, that's the one that resonates with me clearly, because that is where you see the investment the state has made in education, in healthcare, and in empowerment. In Anambra State today, Governor Soludo, when he came into office, employed 8,000 plus teachers to end the era of school without teachers. Now, for analysis and for context and for comparative purposes, most governors only employ teachers or employ civil servants when they are leaving office, so that they hand over the humongous responsibility or financial obligation of paying for those workers to the next administration that is coming in. But in this case, Soludo came into office and employed 8,100 and something teachers in less than 1 year in office, and went ahead to take that level up. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I wanted to comment, but I needed you to. Anyway, I know you ruled out, but there was a concern about the state of security in Anambra State as far as the opposition was concerned. In fact, the issues around the government majoring on the minor, things like moral issues about how women dress, issues around the activities of people that are practicing traditional religion. And sometimes people are saying, these are not the issues that we elected you to come and handle. There are bigger fishes to fry. The economy is in a very challenging situation, and that is more important than some of these issues that is being tackled by the government. But my question, where I was going to with all of that, if you can respond to that, is to the issue of how much incentivization is going on, in terms of incentives, right, I wanted to say, to the companies and local industries that are domiciled in Anambra in places like Nnewi. By now, what we should be saying as far as the leadership of Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo is concerned, given his background with the CBN economy, we should see more robust level of enterprise in Nnewi as a major hub. We haven't seen that.
Now, I don't know the statistics that you're rolling out. I think you're entirely wrong, statistically, and I'm going to tell you that just in a jiffy. But let me go to your introduction to that particular question, where you talked about that the government was just measuring on the minors, talked about how women dress. And we are in an era of social media where people say or post anything they like. I don't think there has been any issue with how women dress. This is one of the propaganda that the opposition posts in Anambra. And then talking about the native doctors, well, that you go to the issue of one of the strong pillars of this administration, which is governance and value system. And then when you want to tackle crime, you have to go to the root. And by going to the root, there are certain things that we see as enablers. The governor is not against traditional people who practice traditional religion. Let's be clear about that. Please, there is freedom of worship, freedom of religion in the Constitution, and the governor very well understands that. The question is, you do not use the freedom of religion or freedom of worship that we have under the Constitution as an incentive for you to now aid crime. So anybody who aids and abates crime is himself a major participant in the commission of that crime. And so when the state government sees that there are one or two issues that links you to criminal activities, in the terms of you preparing various charms and amulets for criminals, then the government has to come after you. So, and that is for that. Then with respect to your question about economic transformation in Nnewi, I can tell you that you are wrong. And I say this with every sense of responsibility. For you, for me, and for the governor in Anambra State, there is a clear pathway for economic transformation and prosperity for Anambra. Nnewi is included. And that is the fact that you must first of all get the infrastructure right. And that was, if you go to Nnewi now, I can tell you that one of the game-changing infrastructure that is being put in place now is the dualization of the road that runs from Agolo all the way through Nnewi and connects the Onitsha-Owerri road. And it is a transformation that is going to open up Nnewi. And I can tell you that companies are being vetted. If you check your data, you can Google, look at the National Bureau of Statistics. Anambra State ranks #1 in the ease of doing business in the entire southern Nigeria. And I think #3 in the entire country. And that speaks to a governor who understands the enabling environment that is needed for businesses to thrive. In Anambra State today, there has been a complete digitization of the land assets in Anambra and the land registry. So these are enabling environments that you need to create for businesses to thrive. And the governor understands that ours is a private sector-driven economy. That's what it is. And today the governor has gone ahead to even promote incentive or initiatives that engender private-public community partnership in growing the economy. And I can tell you that the indices is very, very clear, and the outcomes are very, very, very promising. Like I said, Anambra State ranks #1 in the ease of doing business in the entire southern Nigeria.
All right, we hope that the promise will translate into gains in the near future rather than in the far future, such that, you know, we can have visibles, tangibles by which to measure. You challenged the position earlier that Governor Soludo did not endorse Mr. President for a second term, but the extract from his speech, which many are going by, is what he said in 2011 before he joined APGA in 2013. The party took an official position to support and collaborate with the political party, with the government at the center. Absolutely. If that does not reflect what the intention of Professor Soludo is as far as 2027 is concerned, I wonder what else would. But I'd like you to respond to this, the defection of a key member of the cabinet of Professor Soludo to the APC. I'm talking about Nat'l, who is citing concerns of accountability for his defection to support the candidate of the APC. You know, and some would say that the conduct of the last local government elections in Anambra State does not particularly reflect the values of transparency and accountability by which your principal stands by, because the process, according to reports, was flawed and conferred undue advantage to APGA in that process.
Okay, well, you know, your question is somehow bifurcated, but I'm going to clear you. One, you mentioned my brother Nat'l as being a key member of Soludo. I think that is wrong, and I say it. I always try as much as possible to emphasize on investigative journalism. Bonaventure Nat'l was the ex-Y Commissioner for Lands under Governor Willie Obiano. Was never a member of Soludo's cabinet, I can tell you that. And then from the time he finished as Commissioner for Lands, he has virtually lived, I think some people say in Lagos, you know, maybe barely visited Anambra State once, probably in a year, or maybe in the past 3 years, he has not even been around. And for me, that is that. Let's not elevate this discussion to some worrying pedestal. Everybody has a right to align with anybody. it's entirely his choice. And then for the major question about the local government election that was held in September last year, and it seems you're trying as much as possible to impugn the credibility of that election. I'm a lawyer, incidentally, and the only way you can impugn the credibility of an election is through a challenge in appropriate quarter, maybe the election petition tribunal. Before that election, you know that virtually most political parties, knowing that they were going to face a monumental defeat, opted out of that election. Parties like the All Progressive Congress, that has no visible structure in anywhere in Anambra State, were the ones making noise. And the question is, most times we try to elevate some of these media rhetorics into realities on ground. They are far from reality. What you need to do is just come to Anambra, visit the streets of Anambra. APC does not exist anywhere in Anambra. And for fear of the defeat, they don't even have one councillor. They don't have a House of Assembly member. They don't have a House of Representative member. They don't have a senator. They own nothing, no structure whatsoever. Even the remnants of the structure that they had when our late brother, Senator Ifeanyi Ubah, was still alive, emptied into APGA, and the rest followed one aspirant, Chief Paul Chukwuma, into the YPP. I can tell you there is no structure anywhere on ground in Anambra. And so when we elevate these discussions, it seems we'll try as much as possible to begin to probably look at media rhetoric, social media engagement, and all. These things are far from realities on ground.
All right,
when you get to Anambra State, you see the issues.
Yes, we're totally out of time. We're watching the space and see how it plays out, because the reason why I reeled out my data was to the effect that as at 2024 year end, 173 billion or so came into the coffers of Anambra from IGR and FAC. And of that amount, 70-something% was from FAC. So Anambra generated in the neighborhood of 40 billion, which comes about $3 billion naira every month. So that's what I'm saying. Given his pedigree, we expect a lot more. But we do not have time to explore. We're going to have this conversation again as a build-up to the election.
I can tell you, if, depending on your expectation, a governor that has won the best governor from over 16 organizations, including
Mr. Sly, I'm not in dispute over
the country.
No, I'm not in dispute over his awards. I'm just giving you facts and data and expectations. That's all I'm saying.
Those awards are driven by facts and data.
I've given, so you cannot dispute my own facts. So
driven by facts and data.
The Anambra people will decide. Bukola, thank you for coming, by the way.
We must touch down on this point, and thank you very much, Mr. Eze Okenwa, National Chairman, All Progressives Grand Alliance, and one of the leaders of a party in Anambra State. Thank you very much, sir, for your time on the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.